My son told his wife's family I was retired. I found out the way most fathers discover their sons have become liars. By accident. Logan left his phone on the kitchen counter while he went to grab something from his car, and the damn thing lit up with a voice message from his father-in-law. Franklin's voice came through the speaker, loud and clear, like the universe wanted me to hear every word. Logan, glad we're on the same page about your father. Since he's basically retired and staying out of the planning, we can move forward without worrying about his methods. Tessa mentioned he's been a bit resistant to modern approaches anyway. Better this way. I stood there with a coffee mug halfway to my mouth, steam curling up into my face, and listened to that message 3 times. Each replay made my jaw tighter. The 4th time, I set the mug down carefully because my hands wanted to do something violent to an innocent piece of ceramic. Retired, staying out of their plans, resistant to modern approaches. I didn't remember signing any retirement papers, didn't recall cashing out my life's work and buying a condo in Florida. Pretty sure I was still paying property taxes on the warehouse complex I'd built from nothing over 26 years. But apparently, my son had already written my obituary. The front door opened. Logan walked back in, car keys jangling, that easy smile on his face, the one that used to make me proud, and now just looked like a mask. 28 years old, MBA from a decent school, thought he understood business because he could make a PowerPoint presentation look slick. "Hey, Dad," he said, reaching for his phone. I picked it up first, held it out to him, watched his face. "You've got a message," I said. "From Franklin." The smile flickered. Just for a second, but I saw it. I've spent 3 decades reading people across negotiation tables, watching for the tells that mean someone's about to fold or fight. My son had just shown me his hand. "Oh yeah," Logan said, taking the phone a little too quickly. "We've been coordinating on the development project, just logistic stuff." "Logistics," I repeated. "Yeah." He pocketed the phone, already turning toward the stairs. "Nothing major. Hey, I'm meeting Tessa for lunch, so I'll be out most of the afternoon." He was halfway up the staircase when I spoke again. "Logan." He stopped. Didn't turn around. "When exactly did I retire?" The pause lasted 3 seconds too long. Then he laughed, forced and hollow. "Dad, come on. Nobody said you retired. We just thought, you've been working so hard for so long. Maybe it's time to let the next generation take the lead on some things." "Next generation," I said. Interesting way to say it. "That's not what I meant." "Sure it is." I picked up my coffee again, took a sip. It had gone lukewarm. "And what things are we talking about exactly? The warehouse project? The commercial development deal? The properties downtown?" Logan finally turned around. His face had that tight, defensive look he'd get as a kid when I caught him in a lie. "We're just trying to modernize the approach, Dad. Tessa's family has a lot of experience with contemporary marketing strategies and—" "Tessa's family," I interrupted, "has experience spending other people's money on fancy presentations. Last I checked, Franklin made his fortune selling his father's manufacturing company to a Chinese conglomerate. Once. 20 years ago. Since then, he's been a consultant, which is a polite word for someone who tells other people how to run businesses he's never actually run." "That's not fair." "Fair?" I set the mug down hard enough that coffee sloshed over the rim. "You want to talk about fair? You told them I'm retired. You told them I'm staying out of your plans. You did that without asking me, without even having the spine to tell me to my face." His jaw set in that stubborn way that reminded me too much of myself at his age. "Because I knew you'd react like this." "Like what?" "Like you can't let go of control." The words hung in the air between us, sharp as broken glass. I could have said a lot of things right then. Could have pointed out that the only reason he had any control to grab was because I'd built something worth controlling. Could have reminded him that 3 years ago, when his first business venture collapsed, because he'd trusted the wrong partners and ignored every warning sign. I was the one who cleared his debts and gave him a second chance. Instead, I smiled. Not a warm smile. The kind of smile I used to give competitors who thought they could lowball me. "You're right," I said. "I should let go. After all, you're the next generation, MBA and everything." Logan's expression shifted, suspicion creeping in around the edges. He knew that tone. "Dad." "No, really. I'm clearly out of touch. Old methods, resistant to change, all those things Franklin said." I walked past him toward my workshop off the garage. "You kids do whatever you want with your strategy meeting. I'll stay out of it." "Strategy meeting?" He said it too fast, too defensive. I stopped at the doorway, looked back. "The one you're having next Thursday, at the corporate center on Riverside. The agenda came to my email this morning. Guess someone forgot to take me off the distribution list." His face went pale. "Don't worry," I said. "I won't attend. After all, I'm retired." I closed the workshop door before he could respond, stood there in the familiar smell of sawdust and machine oil, and let out a long breath. My phone buzzed. Text from Marilyn, my wife, who was at her sister's place for the week. "Logan's car is still in the driveway. Everything okay?" I typed back, "Just found out I'm retired. News to me, too." 3 dots appeared immediately then. "Want me to come home?" "No, stay with Janet. I've got this." "I know you do, but Dean?" "Yeah?" "Don't do anything I wouldn't do." I smiled at that, a real smile this time. "That gives me a lot of room." "That's the idea. Love you." "Love you too." I set the phone down on my workbench and pulled out the filing cabinet in the corner. 3rd drawer from the top, behind the folders of old tax returns and property deeds. The document I was looking for sat in a manila envelope, still sealed with the law firm's embossed stamp from 4 years ago. I'd almost forgotten about it. Almost. See, when Logan first joined the family business, fresh out of graduate school and full of ideas about synergy and vertical integration, I'd been optimistic, proud even. My son coming to work alongside me, building something together. So I'd restructured the company, created a partnership framework that would let him grow into real ownership over time. Fair terms. Generous, actually. My attorney, a sharp woman named Patricia Hollis, had drawn up the papers herself. But Patricia was careful. Paranoid, maybe, but that's what you pay good attorneys to be. She'd insisted on including certain provisions, safety measures, just in case. "You never know," she'd said, "how people change when money gets involved, even family, especially family." At the time, I'd laughed it off. Not my son, not Logan. Now, 4 years later, I broke the seal on that envelope and pulled out the document. 53 pages of dense legal language. I flipped to page 7 and read the clause I'd barely glanced at back then. In the event that either party attempts to execute decisions, transfers, or agreements without the express written consent of all named partners, including but not limited to. I read it twice more, feeling something cold and focused settle into my chest. Logan had called me resistant to change, said I couldn't let go of control. He had no idea what control actually looked like, but he was about to learn. I pulled out my phone and called Patricia Hollis. She answered on the second ring. "Dean, been a while. I need you to review something," I said. "And I need you to do it quietly." There was a pause, then a rustle of papers. Patricia had been practicing law for 30 years. She recognized the tone of a client about to go to war. "What did he do?" she asked. "Nothing yet," I said. "But he's planning to. And I'm going to make sure he remembers who actually owns the board he's trying to play on." "When do you need me?" "Thursday," I said. "Before 9 a.m. I'll clear my schedule." I hung up and stared at the document in my hands. 53 pages that my son had signed 4 years ago without reading carefully. 53 pages that Franklin and Denise and Tessa had probably never even seen. Funny how signatures work. You put your name on paper, and suddenly you're bound by words you never took the time to understand. Logan wanted to play strategy games with his father-in-law, wanted to modernize things, push the old guard aside. Fine. But I'd been playing this game since before he was born, and I still had all my pieces on the board. The workshop door opened behind me. I didn't turn around, but I knew it was Logan from the weight of his footsteps. "Dad," he said, "I think we should talk." "Nothing to talk about," I said, sliding the document back into its envelope. "You made your position clear. I'm retired, remember? Staying out of your plans." "That's not—" He exhaled hard. "Look, I didn't mean it like Franklin said. He has a way of phrasing things that makes them sound worse than they are." Now I turned around, looked at my son standing in the doorway, backlit by the afternoon sun, and saw a stranger wearing a familiar face. "Here's the thing, Logan," I said quietly. "I built this company from a single warehouse and a truck with 200,000 miles on it. I worked 80-hour weeks while you were learning to walk. I missed little league games and school plays and birthdays because I was securing contracts that would pay for your college education and your graduate degree and the down payment on your house. I know that, Dad. I appreciate—" I'm not finished. My voice stayed level, but something in my tone made him stop. "I didn't do all that so you could tell your wife's family that I'm obsolete, that my methods are outdated, that I'm retired. I never said obsolete. You didn't have to. Franklin said it for you." I picked up the envelope, held it where he could see it. "You want to know what this is?" Logan's eyes fixed on the envelope. "What?" "This is the partnership agreement you signed 4 years ago, the one that restructured the company, the one your attorney definitely told you to read carefully before signing." His face went carefully blank. I read it. "Did you?" I moved closer, watched him try not to step back. "Because if you had, you'd know that page 7 contains a very specific clause about independent decision-making, and page 3 has an even more interesting provision about who has veto power over major strategic changes." The color drained from his face. "That meeting on Thursday," I continued. "The one I'm supposedly not attending. What decisions are you planning to make there, Logan?" "Just preliminary stuff. Budget allocations. Marketing direction. Nothing that requires—" "My signature," I finished. "Nothing that requires my signature, except, according to this document, everything does. Every decision, every allocation, every strategic change. All of it requires my express, written consent." Logan's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "That can't be right. Patricia Hollis doesn't make mistakes." "But you told me I had real authority, that this was a partnership." "It is a partnership," I said. "A partnership where you're learning, where you earn authority by proving you can handle it, not by lying to your wife's family about who actually controls the company." "This is insane." His voice rose. "You're going to sabotage everything because your feelings got hurt?" I laughed. Couldn't help it. "Feelings? Logan, this isn't about feelings. This is about you trying to cut me out of my own company without having the basic competence to check if that's even legally possible." "I wasn't trying to cut you out." "Then what were you trying to do?" The question hung there. Logan's jaw worked like he was chewing on words he couldn't spit out. Finally, he said, "Tessa's parents offered to invest. Significant capital. But they wanted assurance that the company would be managed according to contemporary standards. They're uncomfortable with traditional approaches." "Traditional approaches," I repeated. "You mean the approaches that built something worth investing in?" "That's not what I—" "Get out of my workshop, Logan." He stared at me. "Dad." "Get out." I turned my back on him, heard him stand there for another 5 seconds, then heard his footsteps retreat across the garage. The house went quiet. I stood alone in my workshop, surrounded by tools and projects and 30 years of accumulated life, and felt something shift inside me. Some line I'd been holding finally went slack. Logan wanted to play hardball, wanted to show off for his wife's family, wanted to prove he was a big shot who could push his old man aside. Fine. But there's a difference between wanting to play the game and actually knowing the rules, and I'd written the rule book. My phone buzzed again. Marilyn. You still okay? I picked up the phone, looked at her message, and typed, Better than okay. I'm going to that meeting on Thursday. Good. Show them who they're dealing with. Planning on it. I slid the envelope into my leather bag, the one I'd carried to every major negotiation for the last decade. The leather was worn smooth, scarred with years of use. It had been with me when I closed the deal on the Riverside properties, when I negotiated the contracts that quintupled the company's revenue, when I sat across from men who thought they could intimidate me and learned otherwise. Logan thought I was retired. His in-laws thought I was irrelevant. Thursday morning, I'd walk into that strategy meeting and remind them all of something very simple. You can't erase a signature that was never meant to disappear. And the best part? They'd do it to themselves. I'd just show up, put the document on the table, and watch them read their way into understanding exactly how badly they'd miscalculated. That night, I sat in my workshop until past midnight, reading through every page of that partnership agreement. Making notes, planning. Patricia had built in more protections than I'd realized. Every single clause worked in my favor if Logan tried to make unilateral decisions. My son had always been smart. Good grades, solid instincts, natural charisma. But smart isn't the same as wise. And charisma doesn't mean much when you're outmaneuvered by your own signature. Thursday was 3 days away. I had work to do. While you're here, hit the hype button, don't forget to subscribe and support this channel with a like. And tell us below, have you ever faced something like this? Thursday morning arrived cold and gray, the kind of October day where the sky looks like dirty metal and the wind cuts through your jacket. I woke up at 5:30, same as always, and went through my routine with mechanical precision. Shower, shave, coffee, the charcoal suit I hadn't worn in 6 months. Marilyn had come home Wednesday night. She stood in the bathroom doorway now, watching me knot my tie in the mirror. You look like you're going to war, she said. Close enough. She moved behind me, adjusted my collar with practiced hands. We'd been married 29 years. She knew when to talk and when to just stand there and be present. Right now, she chose present. Patricia called last night, I said. She reviewed everything. The document's airtight. Of course it is, she wrote it. Logan tried to reach me yesterday 5 times. I didn't answer. Marilyn met my eyes in the mirror. You think he knows? I think he's starting to realize he might have a problem. I picked up my leather bag from the chair, but he won't know the full extent until I walk through that door. And then? Then we see if my son learned anything from watching me work all these years, or if he really believes his MBA makes him smarter than experience. She kissed my cheek. For what it's worth, I think you're doing the right thing. Really? No parent wants to go to war with their kid, but sometimes kids need to learn that actions have consequences. She smiled, sharp and knowing. Besides, Franklin's an ass. Watching him realize he backed the wrong horse will be entertaining. That made me laugh, some of the tension easing from my shoulders. You're a bad influence. You love it. I did. The corporate center on Riverside sat in the newer part of town, all glass and steel and architectural ambition. 20 years ago, this had been abandoned warehouses and cracked parking lots. I'd bought 3 of those lots for pennies on the dollar, held them through the recession, and sold them at the peak of the development boom. The building itself had gone up 5 years ago. I'd been invited to the ribbon-cutting ceremony. Franklin had not. He'd moved to town only 3 years ago, following his daughter after she married Logan. I parked in the underground garage, took the elevator up to the 3rd floor, and walked down the hallway with my bag in hand. Conference room 3B, according to the agenda. Through the glass walls, I could see them already gathered around the table. Logan sat at one end, laptop open, looking professional in his navy suit. Tessa beside him, blonde and polished, wearing the kind of outfit that cost more than it looked like it should. Franklin and Denise on the other side, both of them radiating that particular brand of wealthy confidence that comes from never having built anything yourself. And 3 other people I didn't recognize, probably the consultants Franklin had brought in, the experts who would modernize everything. I checked my watch. 8:57. The meeting started at 9. I walked up to the door and tried the handle. Locked. Through the glass, I saw Logan's head snap up. Our eyes met. His face went pale. I knocked. 3 sharp raps. Nobody moved. They all just stared at me like I was a ghost who'd wandered into the wrong afterlife. I knocked again, harder this time. Franklin stood up, moved toward the door. He was a big man, 6'2", with silver hair and the kind of tan that comes from golf courses, not construction sites. He opened the door just wide enough to lean out. "Dean," he said, voice friendly but eyes cold. "This is unexpected. I thought Logan mentioned you'd be taking a step back from operational meetings." "Did he?" I smiled. "Must have slipped my mind. This is still my company, right?" "Well, yes, of course, but we're discussing some strategic directions that require my signature," I finished. "I know. That's why I'm here." I pushed past him, not aggressive, just steady pressure that made him either move or get shoved. He moved. I walked into the conference room and set my bag down on the table. "Morning, everyone," I said. "Sorry I'm late. Traffic was terrible." "Dad," Logan's voice came out strained, "this really isn't necessary. We can brief you on the decisions later." "But we haven't made any decisions yet," Tessa said quickly, shooting Logan a look. "We're just discussing possibilities. Options." "Right. Options." I pulled out the chair at the head of the table, the seat Franklin had been occupying, and sat down. "Don't let me interrupt. Please, continue." The silence stretched out for about 10 seconds. One of the consultants, a thin man in his 40s with expensive glasses, cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should start with introductions. I don't believe we've met, Mr. "Carver," I said. "Dean Carver. I own the company." "Ah." The consultant glanced at Logan, who was staring at his laptop screen like it might offer an escape route. "I'm Derek Pendleton. I've been consulting with the family on brand positioning and market penetration strategies." "Market penetration." I nodded slowly. "Interesting. And what market are we penetrating?" "Well, the development project represents an opportunity to expand into the boutique retail space, particularly targeting younger demographics with..." "Boutique retail." I pulled the manila envelope from my bag, set it on the table. Didn't open it yet. "Logan, you told me this was about warehouse expansion, commercial properties, the stuff we actually know how to do." Logan finally looked up from his laptop. "The plan evolved, Dad. Tessa's parents identified some opportunities that could diversify our portfolio." "Diversify?" I looked at Franklin. "That's a nice word. Corporate. Very professional. When exactly did you identify these opportunities?" Franklin's expression remained pleasant, but something tightened around his eyes. "We've been researching the local market for several months. The demographic trends indicate..." "How many months?" "Excuse me? You said several months. How many? 3? 6? Because Logan only started seriously talking to you about the business 8 weeks ago, according to the email thread I saw yesterday morning." The room went very quiet. Denise, Franklin's wife, set down her coffee cup carefully. "I'm not sure I appreciate your tone, Dean," Franklin said. "We're all on the same team here." "Are we?" I opened the envelope, pulled out the partnership agreement. 53 pages of paper that suddenly felt like they weighed 53 pounds. "Logan, do you remember signing this?" My son's face had gone from pale to gray. Dad, please don't. It's a simple question. Do you remember signing it? Yes. Did you read it? Yes. All of it? Logan's mouth opened, closed. No sound came out. I slid the document across the table, positioning it so everyone could see. This is the partnership agreement that restructured the company 4 years ago. It gives Logan a minority stake and outlines the terms under which he can assume greater responsibility over time. We're aware of the basic structure, Franklin said. Logan shared the relevant details. Did he share page 3? I flipped to the page in question, turned the document so it faced them. Watched their eyes move down the text, saw the exact moment comprehension hit. Derek Pendleton, the consultant, read it out loud in a tone of dawning horror. All strategic decisions involving capital allocation above $50,000, property acquisitions or sales, partnership agreements with external entities, or fundamental changes to business operations must receive written approval from all named partners prior to execution. That's a standard provision, Franklin said, but his voice had lost its certainty. Is it? I leaned back in my chair. Because the way I read it, every decision you've been planning in this meeting requires my signature. Every single one. Tessa spoke up, her voice tight. That's just a formality, though, right? I mean, obviously Dean would approve decisions that benefit the company. Would I? I looked at her directly for the first time. You don't know me well enough to know what's obvious to me, Tessa. Dad, come on. Logan's voice cracked slightly. You're not actually going to hold this over our heads. We're trying to grow the business. No, I said quietly. You're trying to take it in a direction I never agreed to. Using my money, my properties, my reputation, without asking me. We were going to discuss it with you, Logan insisted. When? After you'd already committed to Franklin's investors? After you'd already signed contracts with consultants? I gestured at Derek Pendleton. How much are we paying him? Nobody answered. Logan, how much? $15,000 a month, my son muttered. For 6 months. $90,000. I let that number hang in the air. For someone to tell us how to run a business in an industry he's never actually worked in. Did you get my signature for that? It was approved as a preliminary expense. By who? By me. I'm a partner. I have discretionary. Up to $50,000 annually for operational expenses, I interrupted. I wrote that clause myself. $90,000 is over the threshold, which means you needed my signature. Logan's face flushed red. That's a technicality. Law is nothing but technicalities, son. You'd know that if you'd read the damn document before you signed it. Franklin stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Now wait just a minute. Logan brought us into this because he wanted to modernize the company's approach. You can't fault him for showing ambition and initiative. I can fault him for lying to me, I said. And I can definitely fault him for making commitments he doesn't have the authority to make. This is ridiculous. Franklin's professional mask was cracking, showing the irritation underneath. You're sabotaging your own son's career because of wounded pride. I stood up too, slowly, and met Franklin's eyes across the table. Pride's got nothing to do with it. This is about my son trying to give away control of my company without telling me. And it's about you thinking you could waltz in here with your consultants and your market research and push me aside like I'm some old fool who doesn't understand modern business. Nobody said that. You didn't have to say it. You just acted like it was already decided. I gathered up the partnership agreement, slid it back into the envelope. Here's what's going to happen. This meeting is over. Logan, you're going to terminate the consulting contract with Mr. Pendleton, effective immediately. We'll eat the cost of whatever work's already been done, but no more. You can't just, I can. And I am. I looked at each of them in turn, the consultants looking uncomfortable, Denise staring into her coffee, Tessa's face frozen in shock. We're going back to what this company does well, commercial real estate, warehouse management. Dad, You're making a huge mistake, Logan said, standing up now too. The retail market is... I don't care about the retail market. I care about my company not being turned into someone else's experiment. I picked up my bag and walked toward the door. Behind me, I heard Franklin's voice, sharp with anger. Logan, are you going to let him do this? I stopped at the doorway, looked back at my son, waited to see what he'd say. Logan stared at me with something between fury and desperation. This isn't over, Dad. Yes, I said. It is. I walked out of the conference room, down the hallway, to the elevator. My hands were shaking slightly, adrenaline, anger, something else I couldn't quite name. The elevator doors closed and I was alone, my reflection staring back at me from the polished steel. You just burned a bridge, a voice in my head said. That was your son back there. I know, I answered it, and he needed to learn what happens when you try to play games with people who taught you the rules. My phone buzzed as the elevator descended. Text from Marilyn. How did it go? Exactly as planned, I typed back. They tried to lock me out. I showed them why that was impossible. Logan? Pissed, humiliated, probably regretting some choices right about now. And you? I thought about that as I walked through the garage to my truck. How did I feel? Victorious? Vengeful? Righteous? I feel tired, I typed. And I feel like it's just getting started. Because it was. I knew Logan. Knew how he thought, how he'd react to being cornered. He wouldn't accept this. Wouldn't just shrug and say, Dad was right, I overstepped. No. He'd double down. He'd find another angle, another approach. And Franklin would be in his ear the whole time, telling him that I was the problem, that I was holding him back. I got in my truck and sat there for a minute, engine running, heat starting to pour through the vents. Through the windshield, I could see the entrance to the building. Any moment now, they'd all come streaming out. Logan and Tessa, Franklin and Denise, the expensive consultants who'd just lost a client. Sure enough, the door opened. Franklin came out first, talking animatedly on his phone. Denise followed, looking unhappy. Then the consultants, carrying their briefcases and laptops. And finally, Logan and Tessa. Even from a distance, I could read the body language. Logan's shoulders were hunched, his hands shoved in his pockets. Tessa walked slightly apart from him, her arms crossed, not looking at him. They were fighting, or about to be. Good, part of me thought. Let him deal with the consequences. But another part, the part that remembered teaching him to ride a bike and helping him with his homework and sitting in the hospital when he was 7 and broke his arm, that part felt something twist painfully in my chest. I put the truck in reverse and backed out of the space before I could change my mind. The drive home took 20 minutes. I spent it thinking about what came next. The consulting contract could be terminated. That was simple. But the bigger question was what Logan would do now, what Franklin would push him toward, and what Tessa would demand. Because that, I suspected, was the real issue. Not Franklin's ambition or Logan's pride. Tessa. My daughter-in-law had grown up with money, the kind of money that doesn't have to work for itself. Her parents' house was a mansion in the suburbs, all marble countertops and imported tile. She'd gone to private schools, vacationed in Europe, expected a certain lifestyle. Logan had been trying to provide that lifestyle, trying to prove he could give her what she was accustomed to. And when the traditional path, working his way up in the family business, proved too slow, he'd looked for shortcuts. Franklin had offered him one. A way to skip the hard years, to jump straight to success. All it required was pushing his father aside. It hadn't worked. And now Logan was stuck between his wife's expectations and his father's authority, with no easy way forward. I pulled into my driveway and sat there for a moment, looking at the house I'd lived in for 22 years. Solid brick, nothing fancy, but paid off and mine. The kind of house you build a life in, not the kind you show off. My phone rang. Patricia Hollis. Well, she said when I answered. They didn't know about page 3, Or if they did, they thought I wouldn't enforce it. And now they know better. Now they know better, I agreed. What's your next move? I don't have one. Ball's in Logan's court. He either accepts the situation or he escalates. Patricia made a thoughtful sound. My money's on escalation. Franklin doesn't strike me as someone who takes defeat gracefully. He's not. Then watch yourself, Dean. Cornered animals bite. We hung up and I went inside. The house was empty. Marilyn had gone to her pottery class, wouldn't be back until afternoon. I made myself a sandwich I didn't really want and ate it standing at the kitchen counter, looking out at the backyard. 30 years. 30 years of building and planning and sacrificing. And in one morning, I'd had to treat my own son like a hostile takeover attempt. The worst part? I'd do it again. Had to do it again. Because if I let him get away with this, he'd never respect me. Never respect the business. Never understand that authority isn't something you take. It's something you earn. My phone rang again. This time, the screen showed Logan's name. I almost didn't answer, but that would be cowardice, and I'd never taught my son to be a coward. Yeah, I said. Dad. His voice was tight, controlled. We need to talk. Thought we already did. Not in front of everyone, just you and me, please. The please surprised me. Logan didn't beg, didn't plead. He argued, he negotiated, but he didn't ask for favors. When? I said. Tonight? Dinner? Just us. No Tessa? No Tessa, no Marilyn, just father and son. I should have said no. Should have told him the conversation was finished. But something in his voice made me hesitate. 7 o'clock, I said. Marino's. I'll be there. He hung up before I could change my mind. I set the phone down and stared at it like it might offer some guidance. Marino's was the Italian place we used to go to when Logan was in high school. Red sauce and garlic bread and the kind of cheap wine that tastes better than it should. We hadn't been there together in years. The next evening, I stayed home while Logan and Tessa confronted Franklin. It wasn't my fight. Not directly. But I kept my phone close, volume turned up, just in case they needed backup. Marilyn and I ate dinner mostly in silence. She knew I was distracted, kept glancing at my phone every few minutes. They'll call if they need you, she said. I know. But knowing didn't stop the anxiety crawling under my skin. My phone finally rang at 7:45, Logan's name on the screen. How'd it go? I answered. About as bad as you'd expect. His voice sounded drained. Can you come over? Tessa's parents left, but we need to talk. On my way. 20 minutes later, I was back at their house. Logan opened the door before I could knock. He looked exhausted, shirt untucked, tie missing, like he'd been through a physical fight instead of a verbal one. Tessa sat on the couch in the same spot as yesterday. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but dry now. What happened? I asked, sitting in the same chair as before. Logan poured himself a whiskey from the bar cart, offered me one. I shook my head. We showed him the financial records, Logan started. Laid everything out, the loans, the debt, the lawsuits, asked him to explain. And? He denied it at first, said we were misinterpreting things, that the documents were out of context. When that didn't work, he tried to spin it as temporary setbacks that would resolve once the right opportunities came through. Which meant Logan's company, Tessa added bitterly. That was the right opportunity. Us. Then we showed him Patricia's report, Logan continued. All the other ventures he'd been involved with, the pattern. That's when he got angry, Tessa said. Started yelling about how we'd betrayed him by investigating him, how Dean had turned us against him, how he was only trying to help and we were treating him like a criminal. Did he threaten you? I asked. Not directly, but he made it clear he thinks you're the problem. Called you manipulative, controlling, said you'd poisoned us against him. Classic deflection, I said. We set the boundaries like you said, Logan went on. Told him he needed to leave you alone, leave the business alone, and deal with his own problems. No more schemes, No more manipulations. How'd he take that? Logan and Tessa exchanged a look. Not well, Tessa said quietly. He said I was choosing your family over him, that I'd regret turning my back on my own father. My mom just sat there the whole time crying, not saying anything. I'm sorry, I said. I know that couldn't have been easy. It wasn't, but it was necessary. Tessa straightened her shoulders. I'm not going to let him keep hurting people, even if he is my father. My phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. This is Franklin Morrison. We need to talk. In person. Tomorrow morning. Come alone, or I'll make sure everyone in this town knows what kind of man you really are. I showed the text to Logan and Tessa. He's bluffing, Logan said. He has nothing on you. Probably, but desperate men do stupid things. I typed back a response. Fine, when and where? The reply came immediately. Riverside Park, 7 a.m., north parking lot. A public place, Tessa said. That's good, right? He won't try anything with people around. Or it's strategic, I said. Somewhere he feels safe having the conversation. Are you going? Logan asked. Yeah. Might as well hear what he has to say. I'm coming with you, Logan said. He said alone. I don't care what he said. He's been targeting you because of me. I should be there. I looked at my son, 28 years old, finally standing up for something that mattered. Okay, but you stay in the truck unless I signal otherwise. He nodded. We talked for another hour, going over strategy, contingencies, what could go wrong. By the time I left, it was almost 10. Marilyn was waiting up when I got home. Franklin wants to meet tomorrow morning, I told her. Riverside Park. That's public, at least. That's what Tessa said, but I don't trust him. You shouldn't. He's got nothing left to lose. She followed me to the bedroom. You want me to come too? No. Logan's coming. We'll be fine. She didn't look convinced, but didn't argue. We went to bed, but I couldn't sleep. Kept playing scenarios in my head. What Franklin might say, what I'd say back, how it could escalate. Around 2 a.m., I gave up and went to my workshop. Pulled out the bookshelf project I'd abandoned, started sanding edges just to have something to do with my hands. Marilyn found me there at 5:30, covered in sawdust, still sanding. You should get ready, she said. It's almost 6. I showered, dressed in jeans and a work shirt. Nothing fancy. If Franklin wanted to have a conversation in a parking lot at 7 in the morning, we weren't going to pretend this was a business meeting. Logan showed up at 6:30, driving his own truck. Together, we headed to Riverside Park. The park was mostly empty when we arrived. A couple of joggers on the trails, an old man walking his dog. Franklin's black Mercedes was already parked in the lot, engine running. Stay here, I told Logan. If things go sideways, call Patricia. Dad, I mean it, stay in the truck. I got out and walked toward the Mercedes. The driver's side door opened and Franklin emerged. He'd aged in the last 2 weeks. New lines around his eyes, his shoulders sagging slightly. But his expression was hard, determined. Dean, he said. No handshake, no pleasantries. Franklin, I want you to know something. Everything that's happened, it's on you. You couldn't stand the idea of your son growing beyond your shadow, so you sabotaged him, sabotaged us. That's not how it happened, and you know it. Do I? Because from where I'm standing, you used that partnership agreement like a weapon, humiliated Logan in front of everyone, destroyed our plans before they even had a chance to succeed. Your plans were built on lies, I said. You had no investors, no real strategy, just smoke and mirrors designed to get you access to my money? That's what you think happened, but you're wrong. Am I? Then explain the lawsuits, explain the debt, explain why you've been borrowing from your daughter to stay afloat. Franklin's jaw tightened. You've been digging into my finances? You broke into my warehouse. Don't act surprised that I returned the favor. I didn't. He stopped, changed tactics. Fine. You want the truth? I've had some setbacks. Bad luck, bad timing. But that doesn't mean I'm a con artist. No, it just means you're willing to use your family to fix your mistakes. Real stand-up guy, Franklin. His hands clenched into fists. For a moment, I thought he might actually take a swing, but he just stood there, breathing hard, fury radiating off him. You've turned my daughter against me, he said. My own daughter. And for what? To protect your precious control? I didn't turn Tessa against you. You did that yourself when you lied to her, used her money, and tried to manipulate her husband. I was trying to help them. No, you were trying to help yourself. And when that didn't work, you tried to destroy me. The warehouse break-in, the false article, hiring a PI to dig up dirt. That's not a father protecting his family. That's a desperate man burning bridges. Franklin stepped closer. Close enough that I could smell coffee on his breath. You listen to me carefully, Dean. You might think you've won, that you've exposed me and protected your empire. But you haven't won anything. You've just made an enemy. Was that a threat? Take it however you want. Behind him, I saw Logan getting out of the truck. Franklin noticed my gaze shift, turned to see his son-in-law approaching. I told him to come alone, Franklin said. And I told him I was coming anyway, Logan replied, walking up to stand beside me. You have something to say, Franklin. You can say it to both of us. Franklin looked between us, something crumbling in his expression. You too, Logan? You're really choosing him over family? He is family. More family than you've been lately. I've been trying to give you a future. A real future. Not just following in your father's footsteps like some obedient dog. By lying to me? By using Tessa's money without telling her? By breaking into our warehouse? Logan shook his head. That's not giving me a future. That's using me as a tool. You ungrateful. Stop. I cut him off. This is over, Franklin. You're done. Done with the schemes, done with the manipulation, done with trying to insert yourself into my business. Walk away now while you still have some dignity. Or what? Or I release everything. Every lawsuit, every debt, every shady deal you've ever been part of. I'll make sure everyone in this town knows exactly what kind of man Franklin Morrison is. You wouldn't dare. That would destroy Tessa too. Tessa already knows, Logan said. We showed her everything, and she's the one who suggested we draw the line. The color drained from Franklin's face. She knows? Everything. The loans, the lawsuits, all of it. Franklin stood there, swaying slightly, like he'd been punched. She wasn't supposed to find out. Too late, I said. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to get in your car and drive away. You're going to leave me alone, leave Logan alone, leave the business alone. You're going to deal with your own problems like an adult. And if I don't? Then I stop being nice about exposing you. Right now, only the three of us and Tessa know the full extent of your situation. If you keep pushing, everyone will know. Franklin looked at me with pure hatred. You self-righteous bastard. You act like you're so much better than me, but we're the same. We both do whatever it takes to protect what's ours. No, I said. We're not the same. I built something. You just tried to steal what other people built. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Franklin turned and walked back to his Mercedes. He paused at the driver's door, looked back at us. This isn't over, he said. Yes, it is. He got in, slammed the door, and peeled out of the parking lot fast enough to leave rubber on the asphalt. Logan let out a breath he'd been holding. That was intense. Yeah. You think he'll really leave us alone? I don't know, but we sent the message. Now we wait and see if he's smart enough to listen. We walked back to our trucks. Logan leaned against his door, suddenly looking younger, more uncertain. Dad, do you think I did the right thing? Standing with you against him? Do you? I think so, but it's going to cost me. Tessa's relationship with her parents is damaged, maybe permanently, and that's on me. No, I said firmly. That's on Franklin. He made the choices that led here. You and Tessa are just dealing with the consequences. I guess. He rubbed his face. This whole thing is exhausting. It is, but it's almost over. Promise? I wanted to promise. Wanted to tell him that Franklin would back off, that things would go back to normal, that we could all move on. But I'd been in business long enough to know that endings were rarely that clean. I hope so, I said instead. I really do. We drove home separately. The morning sun was fully up now, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Beautiful morning. Terrible conversation. Marilyn was in the kitchen when I got back. How was it? She asked. He's angry, hurt, desperate, and he made it clear he thinks this isn't over. Is it? I don't know. I hope so. But Franklin's unpredictable right now. No telling what he'll do next. My phone rang. Patricia Hollis. Dean, we have a problem. My stomach dropped. What kind of problem? Franklin just filed a lawsuit. Claims you defamed him, interfered with his business relationships, and conspired with his daughter to steal confidential information. That's insane. We didn't... I know. It's a nuisance suit, completely baseless. But it'll take time and money to fight. And that's exactly what he wants. I closed my eyes, felt the weight of it settle on my shoulders. Franklin hadn't walked away. He'd doubled down. The war I'd hoped to avoid was just getting started.